Today on the Eye of Power podcast, it's my great pleasure to welcome a friend of mine, Justin McClure. His company is Daflure Heating and Cooling, and it's local to Pennsylvania. He has other companies too, specifically down in Florida, and some other, not just companies, but other associations that he has. Justin is a leader. He's a kind of person that you want to be around, you want to know, you're happy to have in your life. He's just a force for good in the world, and I've asked him to come on today's show, and I'm very much appreciated that he took me up on it. So, um, without any further ado, let's welcome Justin McClure to the show. Welcome to the Eye of Power podcast. I'm your host, Tom Dardick. But this podcast is not about me. It's about you and your power. It's time to claim yours. Well, I'm definitely glad to be with you again, my friend Justin. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Oh, my pleasure. And the reason I'm excited to talk to you today is you kind of exemplify, at least in my mind, a person of faith and a person who really puts a lot of your energy towards what I'll just call goodness, being a good person, being a good father, being a good husband, being a good leader, being a good member of a community, being a good servant to people in need. I mean, that's kind of, at least in my eyes, that's the Justin McClure brand. And so I just wanted to get your view on that as to how and why people might feel that way about you, and maybe what the effects are. And then maybe we could get towards an area where tips or advice or things that people who desire to be that way or would like to encourage that within themselves might take something to stock, to heart, and actually do something about. So that's kind of the agenda for the day, if that's cool with you.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you recognizing that. I believe that we should live with actions that we believe in, and then hopefully those actions reflect kind of our ideology or our faith or our belief system. So yeah, really grateful. I have to give credit to my mom and dad for modeling it first. I mean, I'm blessed to have two loving parents still married. They'll celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary next summer.
Wow.
So I think
Wow.
there's
Wow.
testimony just in marriage is a tough thing. It's kind of like we joke as Christians sometimes, it's God's biggest joke. It's like, okay, let's take two imperfect people, let's put them together and say stay like that your whole life. It's a really, really challenging thing. But I think just having parents that model that first, being a Christian, having the example of Jesus, I think he used stories and parables, and when he needed to, but he lived the example of serving other people. So I think I share that. I don't think you have to be a Christian to live with goodness, and I think the country, the world that we're in today, I think people appreciate that. They don't necessarily want to be preached at, but they definitely know that there's division out there, and we don't all think the same way. We don't all agree in the same direction, but I think like just treating people with respect, like I believe everybody, regardless of their background, is unique and brings something to community. We all have value, regardless of education, regardless of, if we feel we have a disability or we're not very smart. I mean, I like to start saying, as I've been Leadership Harrisburg area provided me the Platinum Award for Servant Leadership. And it's an uncomfortable thing to kind of think about that. But I said there is like, I'm a pretty ordinary person. I just think, and what I found is that if you stack a lot of ordinary things consistently together, sometimes people see it as extraordinary. But, I'm grew up the oldest of four children. My parents were not college educated. Fortunately, gave us the opportunity to get a college education. Went to Penn State, but I graduated in the bottom 20% of my high school class. School did not come easy. I'm not an intellect. I'm a hard worker. I value education. I learned to read in my mid 20s. I wish I would learn to read like when I was 15, because I think it would have helped me in high school and college. But I just didn't really value um, reading as a way of expanding my knowledge base, or even as enjoyment. I was more of an athlete. I do value athleticism, and athlete playing in team sports teaches you a lot about life, and failures, and picking yourself up from that. It's each individual, regardless of our background, I think really has something to share with someone else, and provide value in community. And I see that as an opportunity, not as a expectation, or that you have to, but that you have the opportunity to bring that every day, bring an attitude of, as you had said, maybe goodness.
Yeah. Well, you put a lot of clay on the table there. So let's kind of go through it a bit here, Justin. Um, the first thing you started with, I don't think it's accidental. You started with marriage. You started with your parents' example. You have a marriage that you're rightly proud of. And you said that marriage is a kind of a funny cosmic joke in a way, because of the proposition. It's terribly difficult because here we are, we're trying to grow and change as individuals and as a couple, and these things have to stay within the same orbit in a enough harmony that we can somehow keep it going and have it be a loving,
Hold
positive
it together.
place. um, and the concept of marriage, of course, is something that goes across religions and cultures, and it's not any one thing, but there are some universals to it, right? And one of the universals is something else he pointed there, which is that solid commitment, right? It was 50 years for your parents. Um, Whether you are consciously aware or not, in your case, four boys, or, four boys, right?
Oldest, three boys and a girl.
Three
Yep.
boys and a girl. Three boys.
Yep.
I was projecting there because in my family, I'm the oldest of four boys. So,
Yeah.
but four siblings that they might not be able to say it or think about it, but they know deep down if something is solid, like if they're on a solid footing, if they know that, next Christmas is going to be like in some important ways the last Christmas, and so forth and so on, going out, and you get that sense I mean, the word that I used is solidity. We could probably come up with some others, but ultimately, I think that's a outgrowth of the concept of commitment. And I see too many people who go into marriage. They're not really being married in the way that we're talking about. They're trying marriage on for size to see if it works a lot of the time, right? It's like, well, seems like it's going to work. Let's try it, and then if it doesn't work, we'll just get divorced. And I've always said that's actually not marriage. That's that's kind of play acting marriage in a way. But it's a hard thing to if you don't see it modeled like you and I both had the fortune of. It's a very difficult thing to get your head around. What say you to all that?
Yeah, and my dad's parents got divorced in the '60s, when that was really not a popular thing. My dad was 12 years old.
Wow.
Um, my and Laura and I have been married 23 years, but her parents were divorced when she was about three. But
Wow.
you're 100% right. It's not like just generationally we've seen this. You've got to work on it. One time heard that, like, marriage is not a 50-50 thing. It's 100-100 thing, because very rarely do we bring 100% to the table every day. So if our 100% is 50, and Laura's at 45, and she's doing good that day, she's at 90%, but I'm not doing very good, I'm at 50%. 45 and 25 don't hit 100. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, we both got to bring 100% to the table, so that my 80% and her 90%, we're still making a commitment in a marriage, and looking at it a little bit more traditionally. But I just, folks say, I'm 45. I've been blessed to, from a worldly perspective, I guess, to people, say, hey, you've gotten ahead in life. What's the secret sauce? And I'd say, like, commitment to one person really helps with that. To have We have two sons. Our oldest is 18 or 19, just turned 19. Taylor's up at Penn State, and our youngest is 11. Our youngest is adopted. We've been able to put our own family together. And then, it's just being in a good, healthy partnership that way. Again, we have our struggles. I feel like I'm much better at leading a business than being a husband. I mean, I really have to work on it. Being a father too just didn't naturally come. I'm glad when I talk to other people that fathering becomes, even though I had that modeled for me, I just didn't feel this natural connection when we had Taylor. So I've really had to work hard on that, because it's easier for me to solve complicated business problems than it is to say, let me roll my sleeves up here. My kid's struggling a little bit, and let's kind of peel the onion back and figure this out. So if you can make it work, there's no doubt at 45, being in a trusting and committed relationship that's not perfect, but certainly something that Laura and I believe in, has helped set us up to be where we're at today. And I joke and I say, I'm a one woman and a one job type of guy. Is like I started working for our family business at 21, and that's all I kind of know. And I know other people that have been successful kind of jogging and weaving, but I've been able to stack a lot of like hitting singles together. I haven't had to hit home runs, and it's hard to do in contracting, but you can be pretty average and hit a lot of singles. And I think get ahead in life by doing just certainly simple things that aren't easy. We would define them. If you define one thing, you'd say, well, that sounds pretty simple, but it's certainly not easy. We know that.
That idea of hitting the singles rather than the home runs, I think that's a good message for me personally to hear at this moment, because I'm currently trying to build this business via power, and my temperament and my paradigm that I use, I'm always sort of looking for that big win. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in what you're saying there. Just swing the bat, hit, be consistent, take the hit, get on base,
Get on base. Yeah.
and keep going. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in there that I could probably take to heart and use myself. So I appreciate that very much, that bit of wisdom. And you started going down a line there that I was thinking in the earlier part of our discussion, which the nature of commitment beyond just the one-to-one primary relationship in our life, but also commitment to all the people we have, whether it be business partners, employees, customers, stockholders, whatever constituent it is. It seems to me over the course of my lifetime, our lifetimes together, there's been a noticeable erosion in what society considers okay in the culture about the concept of commitment. I think it is reflected in marriages, but I think it's also reflected in, for instance, the cliche is you used to be able to make a handshake deal in business. And when you shook the hand, that was pretty much it. You didn't really need contracts. They would still do them, of course, but a lot of times there were people just handshake deal and that's all you needed. And you slept at night and you didn't even worry about it. And that's a different world than it is today. What do you say about that observation, Justin?
I think you're right on. And it's funny that, if you even think about 100 years ago, you had a wedding, and you maybe got like dishes and plates and those sort of things, and you used them your entire life. But then, plastics became a thing and disposables became a thing. And that makes our life easy, but it doesn't really help the environment. Like, we're coming to find out how many, plastic bottles are in the ocean and things like that. And so I think if we look at other parts of our life, and maybe I'm going down a rabbit trail we won't want to fully open up, but I think in my life, I say, is this just good for Justin, or is it holistically good? Is it good for my family? Is it good for my coworkers? I'm not living by the principles I want to live by if I'm the only person winning, and sometimes, that handshake deal, well, I made a handshake and I agreed, to this transaction, but someone just messaged me on Facebook Messenger and I could make an extra $100 if I broke the handshake deal. Well, my principle is, and I hope people hold me accountable to this, but I made the deal is the deal. But I think a lot of times the extra $100 is more meaningful in the moment than the relationship of the deal, because technology has allowed us, even today, and this is a good thing, a good use of my time is allowing me to do this through Zoom. But I think you and I both prefer to have coffee and be face to face. But
Absolutely.
technology has just allowed us to be sometimes surface level or superficial in our relationships. And that is not always a positive thing. And I think if we just can acknowledge it and look at it in every part, we never want our marriage to be superficial. We don't want it to be a transactional thing. I mean, this is really, it's a partnership, and done the right way, in the right attitude, in the right context, can really amplify everything else in our life. It can amplify your work. It can amplify having children together. It can amplify serving in the community together. So, done right, it's truly a special and unique thing. And if we could get back to those handshake type arrangements, and that trust, which is countercultural, it shouldn't be, but in the last 50 or 60 years, it seems to, have eroded. And you just, for me, it's like, I don't know that I can really change the paradigm of my whole community, but at least in the relationships that I have, I'm going to do my best to have those handshake deals. And if somebody says, Justin, I love the handshake deal, but I still need a signed contract, or I need, you know, uh, author, I don't get offended by that. I realize that that's what the culture's created, but I'm still going to come and bring my 110% regardless of, I don't look at it just transactionally, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
it makes a total sense. And I think it is that, I mean, basically, as you were talking there, I'm thinking, how do things go wrong in terms of the lack of commitment, the lack of consideration? You said that you don't win if the other people don't win, and I think it's that holistic view, that connection to the bigger picture, to the fact that we are all connected. We actually are all one human family. When we get more tribal, get more short-sighted, get more in crisis mode, get feeling like we're attacked or judged, feeling like we're less than or put out of, then we start feeling like we've got some animosity or some resentments or some of the negative emotions that kind of lead us in the direction of giving ourselves permission to maybe to go back on our word or treat somebody with less than respect or just not even think about them at all maybe. And I think that that is perhaps it's a necessary stage of where we are with humanity as we go through these technological revolutions that are, the fact that we're doing what we're doing right now. I mean, we happen to be in the same town, so we didn't necessarily have to do it this way. But then we had to set up a studio. I'd have to change how I record, and it'd be a little bit of a hoop. We could have done it, of course, but I'm talking generally speaking with people from all over the world, and I love that fact. So it opens up that aspect of possibility. But there is something lost because I do believe that it's superior to be in physical person with the people that you're doing business with or you're caring about or you want to have a relationship with. This is a great proxy that's way compared to not being able to talk is way better, but it's not the same thing. And this is just one example of the types of technological things that put smartphones and mass media and the democratization of the creative process and the way that we, globalization and the way we conduct our public affairs and all these sorts of things are all this big mass of change that we're still trying to figure out what it all means and how to navigate successfully through it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I think for me too, I was recommended, you have a mission and value statement as a company. I think the principle of creating something, a new entity, a new nonprofit is, okay, what problem are you solving? Are there other people doing that similar thing? How are you going to do it differently? Once you figure out, I am going to do this uniquely. I think community needs, my business or my nonprofit. Then you create the mission and values to go with that. I think personally too is like we should learn a lot sooner is like what's our personal mission and values. If you're not getting that just from parenting, and I've got a lot of friends that did not have the upbringing that I had. I've participated for 14 years in Big Brother Big Sister for that exact reason, because I know other people out there are trying to figure this out. But I just really encourage people to have their own mission and values, so that you can look through the lens of your missions and values with all these other things that make our life sometimes easier and better, but they can also go the other direction. And so, I just simply have borrowed or stolen. Jesus said, "Love God, love people," and so I just want to make sure when I'm doing business, or I'm, having a relationship, or if I'm serving in the community, that it's just resonating through the lens of my mission and value. And I think it'll be important with artificial intelligence, and we're going to have jobs go away. But I've read, and you have hope that 120 years ago, it's like the people that picked manure up in the cities from the horse and buggies is like they were repurposed, and we've made it through that, in automobiles. And so we're resilient as people. And I think with the right mission and values, and valuing each other, that we'll make it through AI. But universal income is a real, might have to happen. Is like, I just worry about it. I get so much of my purpose, and so much of my community and relationships have been built through my work. So sometimes I get bogged down in the details, but I just feel really privileged for the opportunity to work, and to solve problems, and to build relationships and meet new people. And so I just, again, I think my mission and value helps me bring me back to, looking at the I of Power model, is like bringing you back to that core competency, is just look at it through the lens of your mission and values.
I think that's important. I mean, you started off right in the beginning of our conversation with you started with your commitment and your the modeling of the marriage, but then quickly went to the role that Jesus Christ has had for you. You mentioned service, respect, the uniqueness of the individual. In the I of Power model, we don't. It's not faith based. Specifically, it's really coming out of the world of psychology. But what's true is true. So I don't care how you want to phrase things. You can see that quadrant right there. Probably can't read it, but that's the purpose quadrant, and it's exactly there because of what you said. That's our actions towards others, and it only really has meaning. You talk as you were talking. I was thinking, okay, what is good? And you're saying you need a mission, you need values, because that's the answer, right? The values that you have is your definition of what you think good is. Mission is what you're going to do about it. And then when you talk about the uniqueness of individuals, what we say in the I of Power is everybody, like, and you said you were like a perfect example where you said, well, I was the bottom 20th. I wasn't the smartest guy. Yeah, I was pretty good at athletics, but I just you wouldn't have said you were anything out of the ordinary. Um, but you're the only Justin McClure in the world, and you're the only person that could have done exactly what you did. And I think that's true of every person. I think everybody
So,
never, you might not be the fastest, smartest, best looking, most charming, most read, whatever, skilled, and there's always going to be somebody that's ahead of you in something. But if you take a list of the things that you're sort of maybe better than average at, or something, there's a unique combination of traits and experiences and accomplishments that no one but you has. And then we get that value and that purpose by, I think part of it is recognizing that, cultivating and developing it, and then putting it to service to benefit other people. I think if you're on that basic path, your sales tend to fill, you tend to feel fulfillment. And I think that's God's way of saying, hey, keep at it. You're on the right track. And then over here, we have the pain quadrant, and we think of pain as being a bad thing because it doesn't feel good. But pain is actually our ally, because what it is, it's a feedback loop. It's reality saying, hey, you got to pay attention. Something needs adjustment over here. There's an energy block, or there's something wrong, and you need to pay closer attention. And without it, we really struggle. So So it's this way of making sure that we get with with the program that we're born for, is what it looks like to me.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you and I have seen, and we're trying to hopefully help, and maybe there's a listener or two, is that I've also found that there's enough pain in external circumstances that you don't have to add any more yourself. So with
Yeah.
with the right mission and values,
You have to
we
borrow it.
we're in contracting. I mean, with the higher rate environment, we've really had a challenging 18 months in business, but we haven't had much turnover with coworkers because our coworkers, tend to, be mission and purpose driven. We haven't had like the Great Recession where, I really struggled financially. We were good stewards of our resources, saved for the rainy day, so we could kind of get through those periods. But often when we maybe don't have good modeled behaviors around us and or created those in our own environment, which is an opportunity for each of us with mission and values, then we make decisions that induce additional pain, which make it even harder. And it is a good thing. It's good feedback, right? I learned way more through the Great Recession. One of the most hardest, I was in my late 20s. I was laden with debt. I was a new father, a relatively new husband, a new entrepreneur, and hit rock bottom, just trying to find myself. And I think one of the things you asked, and maybe we would get to, and I have to give a lot of credit, is that my faith has not changed; it's grown. But Leadership Harrisburg, I found at one of my like lowest points because I never heard of servant leadership, and it really pulled me out of like a deep depression, learning that there was a lot of things externally out of my control, that Justin McClure was unique and I had value. Even if I didn't make it in business, there was still value to me. I had value to my family. I had to be a husband. I had to get out of bed. There was an opportunity to get out of bed and provide value. But the idea of servant leadership just really was transformational to our business. And we often, hear from our professional service people we work with that we, even in the leanest times, we outperform our peers in a similar market just because of the mission and value and how we try to live by serving the community and serving our clients and serving our coworkers. It really does resonate and performs better. And capitalism isn't perfect. I do think it's the best engine for economic growth and perseverance of individuals. But again, when somebody's losing, that's when capitalism is not a great mechanism, right? And that's where the pain hopefully helps us, and regulation helps us stay within set parameters through community. But I really just encourage people to help set up that pain quadrant so it's just the external things that are giving them feedback rather than self-induced things. At least, again, the first time we make a mistake, it's a learning experience, right? Maybe even the second time we make a mistake. But if we continue to make mistakes, if through relationships you just can't hold a long-standing relationship, then I try to say to Justin, what's going on with Justin, not the other person. If I'm not successful in going after this market, it's not the market's problem. It's Justin. Like, what can I look at myself? I want to look at myself first and have high expectations of Justin. I'm hopeful for other people, but I just seen it tends to be people closest to us that will continue to make similar mistakes over and over again, which are self-induced.
So you just threw a whole bunch of good stuff right there for us. I appreciate that. Just to underscore a little bit, you start when you talked about the lean times, the Great Recession, and it was starting to get to you, and you, through faith, it sounded like and through your experience with Leadership Harrisburg, were able to find the magic key that if you're feeling down, if you're feeling less than or put upon or gotten served a bad card or something like that, those feelings are not too compatible with the experience of being of value and support to other people. So when you're serving somebody else, it's and you're doing it hopefully in ways that only you can do. In other words, when you're feeling purposeful, it's very difficult. It sort of crowds out the feeling of being down or less than, or those negative feelings. Gratitude, right? The way that we look at things. Gratitude sort of hip checks that "woe is me" kind of feeling. If it's hard to be both grateful and resentful. Those things don't really fit together too
Get
well.
together. Yeah.
And these are some people struggle with the idea of sort of being in charge of their emotions, and I don't think people understand what emotions actually are. They're supposed to be servants. They're supposed to they're what they are essentially are built-in reflexive actions that are designed at their heart to produce a positive result. Try to induce a change that's going to be either help us survive or procreate or something like that. It's very basic like that. But people tend to think that their emotions are themselves and they are their emotions. And when you get those things kind of messed up, you can kind of bleed power and agency that way. So I think those are good examples of how that can happen. The other thing, when you were talking about the serving, and yeah, we can make mistakes, and we can, whether it's in business or in our relationships, we all are frail. I mean, if we didn't have growth ahead of us, what's the point of being here in this world, right? I mean, we're works in progress. And I think people generally give us that grace, and generally speaking understand, like if you hire somebody, you don't expect them to never make a mistake or have something that doesn't need adjustment. It's really the spirit behind that partnership that's the key thing, right? And I'll say, my experience with, because I'm a customer of Daflure, I'm in the Comfort Club, and have been for
Right.
years, and I've had different people come. That's at least twice a year that somebody from Daflure comes and checks out our heating and our air conditioning units, and make sure things are going right. I don't know how many different types of, different people I've had, but there's been something that's always been the same no matter who it was that was coming in, and that was respect, wanting to communicate, really feeling like I've I feel like I'm in good hands, like they're doing their job, they're doing it because they want to serve, and that spirit comes across. And I think it's related to what you were saying, Justin, about starting with the mission, starting, and you have the people around that sort of stay, and they resonate with that, and it filters through even the little things like routine visits. If you don't have that in place, then what happens is people kind of fall into those traps we were talking about earlier, those transactional traps, like, okay, lunch is in 20 minutes. I can just bang this thing out in 15 and I'll be out of there. And if that's the person's mindset, then the person in the house can tell that, right? That
Sure.
you can, you know that. So these seem like small things to the untrained eye, or any one instance, but the spirit behind what we do is really the important thing.
Yeah, 100%. And again, this can be done in the context of just an individual, or it can be nonprofit, or it could be, our business. And, we try to keep it simple. It's not always easy, but, do what we say we're going to do, provide a VIP experience, actively love our clients, and educate. And so, when we get our service team together every 2 weeks, because you can fall into Groundhog Day, it's
Yeah.
like, I get up at the same time. I do the same thing. Is like, change the paradigm. See that cup half full. Um, Even if you don't love your job or the season of life you're in, I think we can find, by using those emotional triggers. Okay, it's like, something's not right. I'm not happy. I'm depressed. I knew I had to change something, and what I had to do is stop reflecting on Justin's external circumstances, which I had very little control of, and start saying, okay, I'm going to control what I can control, which was my attitude. And we say this to our Daflure team members, is like, we can do what we say we're going to do. Our comfort club, we have principles that we're going to do, or we've got a systematic approach of taking care of planned maintenance on an HVAC system. So we're going to do what we say we're going to do. We're going to treat that client as VIP, like you're the only customer you have that day, though they might have 4 or 5 of those. And, we're going to, actively, utilize love. We hand out a book Joel Manabe wrote called Love Works in our new coworker orientation. And it's like a nice, easy read, but it shows people, what does love mean? It's an uncomfortable word. in our personal relationships, let alone our work relationships. But I've really found the success of, providing that book to my coworkers, and then every 2 weeks, kind of sharing about it, is like, what are we doing to show that client? Again, you have a lot of choices, and we're in a low barrier to entry. You don't need a lot of job training to do what we do. So why do people want to do business with us? And we want to always give them an opportunity. We want to take the opportunity when we're out there to just show appreciation for, making an investment in Daflure and making an investment in your home HVAC system that, is not a sexy thing. You just want it to work, right? All the
Yeah,
time. And when it breaks,
exactly.
you're like, it's like, oh man, I can't believe I got to spend money on this thing. And it provides us a lot of value, but it is one of those things that we know in the business is that it's not what you want to spend money on. So let's try to spend the least amount of money on it as possible and make it last as long as possible to take the pain out of doing that. And we just try to approach it with gratefulness and appreciation that we get to serve the client in that capacity.
Yeah, and that's the leadership piece that you provide is making sure that the staff, and of course it helps to have people that resonate and that stick with you over time, and that's a big thing. But I know you have to go through, people change in their seasons of life, things happen, whatever, so you have to have new people come on. You already answered one of the questions I had there with, you have a regular meeting and you share things like, showing what love in action looks like, and talking about that on a regular basis, and not being afraid. I mean, I think the default out there in the world, Justin, is people just don't even talk about things like that. They just make a whole bunch of assumptions, right? And so you're sort of left to the character of the person that you happen to have representing the organization, and that's what it is. Then that's the customer experience.
Yeah, and I just encourage people, there's just so much out of our control. Don't leave your full emotions or your relationships or the job that you're in to chance. There's just too many things working against us, unfortunately. Is like the forces of the Western world is to get ahead, and sometimes at all costs, and just naturally it's just like, we look at mother nature, and if you leave your shed or your home and just don't touch it for 5 years, you're going to have mold grow on the house, and you're going to have leaves stack up, and the grass is going to grow, and like mother nature is going to try to absorb that house back into itself, and so we've got to be purposeful in keeping, our house or what have you. And life's the same way. It's like, and I hate to break it to people, it's like I'm going through this with my son a little bit right now, is saying, because college is, again, we're not, it doesn't come easy to us to learn, chemistry and calculus and these sort of things, but it's probably, relative to life, the easiest thing you're going to go through. I hate to tell you that.
Yeah, the words don't come back off the page and slap you in the face. they
Thanks, right? Yeah,
they are what they are.
and the competition is not trying to make you, irrelevant, and new
Yeah.
ideas and AI, and they're just, it's like we
People
can
putting
be.
unfair reviews on your
Oh
pages.
yeah, on your, yeah, giving you a 1 star and not even never doing business. So there's a lot of things out there. Don't leave it to chance. Try to get out of bed every morning, with a heart of gratitude that, not everybody has their health. Not everybody has the intellectual ability to go out there and be a producer for community. And some people, we have a coworker that we bring in and provide scanning, and intellectually he'll only, we work through the Vistage school, and he'll only ever scan or shred, those sort of things, but he does that to the best of his ability. And so, don't leave life to chance. Don't get out of bed every day and not have a little bit of a purpose and a plan, and appreciation, that your uniqueness can make this world a better place.
Well, that's a beautiful message. It's a great way to sort of wrap our conversation up. I think it's had a nice thread to it. One thought I wanted to mention was when you mentioned like Mother Nature will grab your house back in 5 years, and so true. Did you see the analysis of what happens if you just erase mankind? What happens to the Earth in 500 years?
No.
If you think about it, 500 years as it relates to this course of the earth is really not that much, right?
No, no. Of course, of billions. It's like you can't even come. Yeah, it's a short
Yeah,
period.
it's a blink of an eye, and there's only a few things like there's the Hoover Dam, there's the Great Pyramid, and there's one other big thing. Stonehenge. No, not Stonehenge, not Stone. Yeah, Stonehenge is one, but Mount Rushmore, Mount
Rushmore.
Rushmore. So there's a few things like that that would still be recognizable, but like all of our big cities, our neighborhoods, all the things that we see have met, they'd all be absolutely gone. You wouldn't see any of it. The skyscrapers would all fall and be reclaimed underneath, and it's amazing.
It, it is, and again, I have always felt that I'd rather be told the realities and then figure out a way to operate within them than not be told. And so, don't be discouraged as a listener, as a friend that's learning from the Eye of Power model that life is difficult. You probably already know that. Just don't leave it to chance, and leverage some of those tools. And I try to get 7 hours of sleep. I try to, wake up at a similar time. I try to, to the best, eat healthy. I do consume some alcohol. It's not perfect. I try to read the right things. I try to listen to things like the Eye of Power and learn from people like you, Tom. It doesn't have to. I listen to Netflix or watch Netflix. Is just have a balance. Is like one of the I try to share with everyone, like learning about 168 hours in a week. And you can be George Washington, Barack Obama, you can be a doctor, a nurse, or you can just kind of let life, you can be a leaf, and the wind's just kind of taking you. We all have 168 hours. It's the one thing that's not discriminating against any of us. So it's like, how do I take that 168 hours and make sure that, faith, family, work, community, um, those priorities fit into that. And so we learn about financial budgeting, but we hear time management, but what does that really mean? To me, that means taking 168 hours and saying, okay, I sleep, 55 or 60 of them, and I work 55 or 60 of them. So it leaves me 50 hours left. What am I going to do with those 40 or 50? That's the opportunity that we have to, be engaged in community and help coach one of your son or daughter's sporting events, or mentoring them through a musical, learning, reading, and entertaining ourselves. I think our own emotional health is like, I can't be the guy I need to be, not doing, like, I like to exercise. That's good for me emotionally and physically. Is I got to take care of Justin just so that I can come at it every day and hopefully bring my best for others.
That's good stuff. I mean, you kind of put a total approach there where we look at the big picture of mission and purpose and what is good and being clear there, and then taking it all the way down to the execution of what are we doing today.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Eye of Power protocol, that's what it all comes down to. We call them SIAs, sustained incremental actions. It's the little things that we do over time that, like compound interest over time. If you're doing it consistently, you might not notice in any given day or week or even perhaps a month, but in year time frames, you start seeing huge differentials, and that's going to be both for better and worse. It
Mm-hmm.
works as a compounding for the effects we desire, and it works for the effects we don't desire as well. So being stewards of our time and our energy, perhaps that is the point of what we're doing here together on this planet.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
Well,
so
Matt,
much, Justin. That was a great
thank
way
you.
to wrap it up. I think that's I thought we'd get something good, and you did not disappoint. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Tom. You've obviously been a mentor of mine and helped us in business and me personally. And I'm just grateful for the time. Had a ton of fun, and hope your listeners have find some value as well. So thanks again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being on, Justin. Appreciate all that you shared with us. Started with the idea of marriage and our upbringings and the commitment. Got in a little bit later on about how what happens when that doesn't quite work out when marriages break up. And of course, that's something that, you know, almost all of us face in one form or another. You talked about your faith in Jesus Christ and the service, the respect for individuals that comes out of that, and that service mentality, service orientation, service leadership, focusing on the welfare of other people as a leader. And that's something that was further encouraged in your experience with Leadership Harrisburg and got you through that tough time through the Great Recession. Well, it's over 15 years ago now. Um, and, you know, got through that dark period and was able to thrive and prosper from then on out. I liked how you shared humbly about you not necessarily feeling sort of anything more than just an ordinary person. I think everybody can basically relate to that. But we also point out, or and I should say, not but, we also point out that ordinary, when you take combination of traits, quickly can be extraordinary when applied in service and applied consistently over time. It doesn't take long to mount up those singles. I really like that idea of just small wins. You don't have to be dramatic. You don't have to swing for the fences every time you're up where you have an opportunity in business or whatever it might be. Make contact, do the fundamentals, uh, handle the basics. Make sure you're doing things that you know are win-win, that are right in the values. I think that's great advice that we got from Justin when he was talking about the idea of mission and values and cultivating those things. His camp comes from the extension of faith, but whatever you value, whatever you think is good in the world, make sure that your life and your business or your, whatever your occupation is, in your relationships, make sure that it's congruent, that you're living those values, that whatever they are, you're not at odds with yourself. I think that's really a very good takeaway from what he shared. Some of that involves, we didn't actually use the word, but it's a word that comes up often when I'm working with, really, whether it be an individual or a culture and a group. And that is personal accountability, the ability to look in the mirror, to internalize. You can't control everything. There's lots of stuff we can't control. There's way more things we can't control than we can. But that doesn't absolve us of the responsibility to control the things that we can control. Justin mentioned controlling our own emotions, our own deeds, our own, and it's not easy, but it is our responsibility. And um, the company that I'm certified and have been for 20 years now, um, with the psychometric tools, TTI Success Insights. They have a wide range of tools that I've been certified with and used over the years. One of the things I take from them, and one of the tools measures personal accountability. And they did some work on this sort of corresponding 25 soft skills in the workplace. And the skill that's the most positively correlated, in other words, that goes along with people who are outstanding in their roles, whether it's however we want to measure success. If it's a salesperson, the one that sells the most. If it's a leader, it's the organization's health. Um, However you want to measure it, the key attribute is personal accountability. It's almost so dramatic that with it, you're pretty much going to succeed, and without it, you're going to struggle. So it behooves us to pay attention to that and make sure that we are willing to look in the mirror, willing to parse out what could I do different, even when people disappoint, even when there's things that happen in the world that we can't control. We can still manage our view, our expectation, our inner uh, calmness and peace and strength and all those things. Personal accountability is key. And part of that also is how we show up in the world. And Justin does a good job with his company where they're constantly reinforcing, to put a fine point on it, love and action. And that love and action in this sense means not necessarily the feeling of love, like I love everybody whose door I come to or whose air conditioning system I check out. No, it's respecting the people's value as an individual and wanting to serve that and put your best the best in you to the best in them. And that sort of love in action is, as a value in your organization, is indispensable. And Daflure is a great example of how that manifests and shows up. So thanks again, Justin. I think those are great business and life lessons, and I hope you got as much from Justin as I did today on the iPower podcast. Thanks so much. This has been the Eye of Power podcast with Tom Dardick. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd also like to thank my brother, Scott Dardick, for the music and his music production. If you'd like to reach me, simply email Tom at dardickcommunications.com